Hey, Steve, I am absolutely loving this. Talking about what's going on in Longmont. Last time we chatted, it was about all the construction going on, and people are just sick of it. All the homes, apartments going up, and it's got to be outsiders. I do want to say one thing before we get started, that I know there are some people who can see the Facebook, our interviews, because we've had over 3,000 views. I've also heard that people cannot respond or make any comment. And I only know this because one gentleman reached out to me and sent me a message. And I believe you've also had the same thing on yours. So I want to let people know we would love for you to like it and share. If you do have comments that you'd like to have asked of Steve, or any of your comments on the interviews, how to improve it, you like it, give us feedback. And there, we're going to jump in today talking about the small businesses of Longmont and the closures. So welcome, Steve. Great to have you here.
Great to be here. Thank you, Jenny. Yeah, I would like to add that I had probably half of the notifications that I had on Facebook where I had a comment. I
Yeah.
would click to open it, and Facebook basically said, comment is not available on this site. And a
Oh,
few would open, but a few wouldn't. So I don't understand what's going on. So if I have not responded to your comments, it's because I've been unable to get it to open.
great. Thank you. Okay, so let's dive in. Let's talk about the businesses of Longmont.
And again, I'm going to be reading a lot of this because I want it to be more verbatim of what people sent to me. Last week, we talked about putting out a Facebook message to people in business that have been in business in Longmont, that maybe they had to shut down their business. And we were asking why, what made it such a challenge? Why do they think sales were decreased, or why was their profit decreasing? Things like that. So the first one was anonymous. This was a direct message, and it was a long one, but it was very interesting. So this person says, Boulder County is terrible to run a business in. I sold my business last year, and I'm so glad that I did. Property taxes there are horrible and way too high, and they just keep going up. And then this is my comment. The budget is up 26% in 2 years. So that's why property taxes, they're taking more money to keep paying for the budget. And now I'm back to what he was saying. And for what reason? Wages to pay an employee are out of control. I believe that is attributed to a blue state that is a desirable state to live in. Colorado is very blue and very desirable. When McDonald's and Taco Bell are paying $20, that hurts mom and pop businesses. There is a rumor that Boulder County is raising minimum wage to $26 an hour next year. That is not sustainable. There will be a ton of micro businesses going out of business, or they will move out of the city if that happens. Colorado in general is not conducive for small business. I've always paid my employees way higher than the national average in my industry, but when COVID happened, that changed everything. Wages skyrocketed 30 to 40% in my industry and state. No one wanted to work in our industry anymore. States that just keep people suppressed with high taxation is not the answer. Everything is expensive in Colorado: taxes, insurance, auto registration, employee wages, housing, food. You have to worry if someone's going to burn your business. This is interesting.
Wait, Steve, can
Yes,
you talk into the microphone? You're
sure.
breaking up.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
So then the person says, well, he's talking about expensive things in Colorado: taxes, insurance, auto registration, employee wages, housing, and food. And then he said, and this is interesting, you have to worry if someone is going to burn your business to the ground because of extreme radical thought process. And he said, these things are not protected or insured if your business is destroyed from civil unrest. So that's the first time I've heard this. I assume it's true, but I do not know. People do not understand this unless they own a business. I lived in Colorado for 31 years, owned a business for 13. It's super sad to be pushed out in a sense. I made the right choice at the right time. I got out, thank God. So that was a person that's very frustrated, obviously.
So,
Um,
Steve, can I
yeah,
interject here?
absolutely.
I'd like to share with people, I don't know if they know it. You have to be here for a few more years. But I did come to Colorado in 75. I moved to Longmont in 79. And there's a book out called The Colorado Blueprint, which explains how Colorado turned blue. It was written by three or four prominent people in Colorado, of whom one of them was Governor Polis. It's a short reading book. It's been years since I read it, but if people are interested in learning more about the history of Colorado, it's a good book to read.
I've heard of that book. I have not read it yet,
Yeah.
but I understood
Okay.
that Polis was one of the main authors there, and then he ended
Yes.
up being governor.
Yes.
So the next person says, I own a masonry business for 15 years. The amount, and these are his words, the amount of illegal Mexicans around here makes it near impossible to get work. And if I do, it's way too cheap for quality work. And the third person mentioned it's not their business, it's someone that they know. They said Faro restaurant in Niwot closed down because they couldn't make enough money to pay staff and rent. They worked hard and tried to keep it going. They were typically pretty full. Then they tried to make it as a local online business. They gave up and moved all the way to Kentucky a few weeks ago. They were open approximately 5 years and they were a high-end restaurant. So those are
Wow.
some of the direct messages that I got.
Yeah.
And and these are some of the comments that I did get on Facebook. And I only wrote down people's first name to give them some privacy.
Okay.
So Cindy said, I'm trying to understand it. I rewrote it, but oh, AI says that small businesses are at an all-time high in the third quarter of 2005. So that was her entire comment. Jen was laid off from AGC Biologics and it was called Mammalian Pharmaceuticals shut down because corporate did not want to invest in new equipment. So to touch on that for a moment, I do know that a long time ago, and then President Trump has brought it back. But for quite a while, you used to be able to depreciate your equipment and get tax benefits for it.
I
And then,
remember.
and then that was taken out of our tax code, and you could not depreciate new equipment. So the
Ah,
purchase of new equipment went down, and that hurt the economy on all kinds of industrial levels. Because
okay.
obviously, if people aren't buying, other people aren't going to be making it anymore. So
Right.
I know President Trump has brought that back, and that large equipment purchases can now be depreciated again, which will help stimulate new business also.
So that was back when Reagan was in office, and I remember that well because we bought some equipment. What I'd like people to understand is how important that is and how quickly the government can change the rules and regulations for small businesses, making it harder on them. So they have to adapt quickly. Back when Clinton was in office, I believe it was Clinton, they brought in the NAFTA agreement. And I believe that was the start of having manufacturing shipped out to other countries.
Yep.
When you understand that the manufacturing being sent off seas is what long term, and it takes a while for this to take effect and really hit people, that is where the hardship is. That's why I'm pleased that to see that Trump is making a huge effort to build manufacturing back here because that is what brings jobs back. And then as far as the minimum wage, that's a hardship, and government people do not necessarily understand that. They try to protect their job because they do not understand the economics and the balance between small business and government jobs. And at this point, my understanding is we're pretty close between small business income and government income. If you want to add something to that, what are your thoughts?
When you were talking about NAFTA, it's I guess, a double-edged sword. Yes, we started shipping millions of jobs overseas because labor was cheaper.
Yeah,
But also, when you take away the tax benefits of buying new and updated equipment, then very quickly, all of our industries are outdated.
right,
We're using older, slower, less efficient, less capable equipment to do the same work that other countries are more modernized with.
right.
So those two, we have fallen way behind. It
Yeah,
will take a while to bring us back up, but President Trump has already arranged for over $20 trillion of foreign investments in America. And these companies are already starting to build their plants. It'll take a couple of years.
right,
You don't build a 500,000 square foot Tesla or Amazon warehouse in a year and a half,
right,
but it
right.
is starting.
Yeah, everything is slow to turn around. And same within a small business. When you lose business, it takes a while for you to figure out, okay, how do I bring in more business? Okay, so let's move on to your comments.
So somebody named Donald said, purge Colorado of liberal socialist government and the problem will resolve itself. Cindy said, it has gotten much more difficult to have a small business. It used to be that this country valued small business, not anymore. Many tax benefits and advantages for large businesses, but not for small. Tariffs have increased costs, but rent is high and so is labor, and so are marketing costs. So those are, oh, there's a few more over here, sorry. Kim said, my business failed when my car died and I couldn't afford to replace it, but she didn't say what kind of business she had.
Okay,
Tony said that Bidenomics didn't work for Colorado. Average American cannot afford to buy a house in Colorado, but plenty of apartments to rent. And Daniel said, trying to run a business is always difficult, but much worse the last 12 months. The price of everything is up and the economy is unstable. Bryce said that we tried to sell our cafe, but got screwed after the pandemic. So those are a lot of the comments from the original question about businesses that have closed. I also asked about people that might be struggling right now. And I got a very, very interesting response. The gentleman gave me his phone number. I called him. We had like a 20-minute conversation. He is over near Martin and Third and has a concrete business. And I'm going to read you what he sent to me, and then we can talk about it. And he told me I could use his name.
great.
He said, my name is Bob Dempsey. I'm the owner of Concrete Cutting Company. It all started about 3 months ago when we were flagged off of Google for reasons unknown. So for years, he's had an ad on Google, and now Google removed him. Then we received a letter from Lori Moody with the redevelopment and revitalization director for Longmont, that our property is part of the Southeast Urban Renewal Plan. TIP, which stands for Transportation Improvement Program. I'm sorry, this is TIF, Area Number 1 Amendment. City Council approved the CRS 31-25-107-1-B. So I don't know what all that is, but it's obviously with urban renewal projects.
Okay,
On November 18th, 2025, in doing so, it made findings that your property at property address is within a blighted area within the meaning of the CRS 2125-102-2. And then he says, I spoke at the city council meeting on the 18th of November and expressed my concerns on having to relocate my business and home that I'd been at for over 10 years. The business was flourishing until we were flagged off of Google. I have not received one call, as now people feel I am no longer in business. I am about to foreclose on my house and shut my business down due to no calls, as I don't appear on Google and have not been successful at getting my business ad back on Google. I understand renewal projects and urban sprawl, but to crush someone in order to make a profit off of their property or for big developers to make a profit is beyond me. I need some kind of help with this matter as I do not know where to turn. I believe this is all connected. And then he gives the phone numbers where I can contact him. So he lives on a street with 11 other houses. Evidently, everybody on the street has received the same kind of letter from the city that they are now in an urban renewal blighted area. And I looked up the word blight, and it means a state or result of being deteriorated or ruined. And he's saying, you know, the houses there are older, but they're not deteriorated or ruined. And it looks like to me, because they use the same word blighted over at the Walmart property at Nelson and Hover.
Right. You're right.
There's not even a building there. It's an empty lot.
Right.
It seems to me that they're using the word blighted and urban renewal development as ways to claim, what's that word, Peggy? Eminent domain.
Oh,
They're trying to use eminent domain to take over people's properties. And I don't think that's right. You know, this area is not blighted like the word means in the dictionary. So I, for one, sympathize with this gentleman. I'm very upset and disappointed that our city will take people's homes and businesses and say, we're going to tear them down and build something new. And that new is always an apartment building. So what do you think about that?
well, what pops into my head is just yesterday I was doing some research and it made me look at the city's budget. So as I'm looking at the budget that they have, there are things in there. I recommend everybody go on and take a look at it. So the budget of 2024, I noticed that 39% of their budget is under personal services. And, you know, I'm not an accountant,
Vague.
and
That seems kind of vague.
that is kind of vague, but the largest part was under their category general fund, electric fund, water fund, and street fund. But some of the things that popped out at me, and we're going to run out of time, are attainable housing, downtown development authority fund, Longmont urban renewal fund, sustainability fund. And it makes me wonder if that is where the most money is going. And is that the best use of people's taxpayer dollars? Because we are getting taxed on these projects, as you pointed out a couple weeks ago, that they want to pay down in what it was at 15 years, 20 years. Well, that's after some of these city council members are gone. And that means it falls on my kids and other people's kids. And I don't think that's the way you run a business. I think that the city should consider that they are running a business and take a look at how some of these laws are coming down from the state capitol of why are we having so many of these homes coming in. They're built by out-of-state construction people, and there are more issues there. So bringing it back to our conversation today about small businesses, it's their budget and all the fees that they add on are property taxes and personal taxes that they're running everybody out of town. It's not just Longmont. I was listening to a YouTube where they were talking about all over Colorado, the same type of thing is being done. Now, Longmont's charm was a lot of the old buildings, and they want us to look like Aspen or Vale. That's not Longmont. That's not why people come here to Longmont. That's my input, as quickly as I can say it. And I want to give the last couple minutes to you, Steve, because you're the one who gets me all riled up.
Well, to the best of my knowledge, there is nothing in our federal constitution or our state constitution, and I don't believe it's even in our city constitution, that government can own real estate. Our government is not supposed to be running our property. A few years back, the city of Longmont bought Longmont Housing Authority. To my knowledge, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the city of Longmont that built that hotel over at 3rd and Kinbar. And I believe the city owns it. That should be a free market situation where Marriott or Hyatt or somebody says, hey, I'd like to build a hotel. And they make a deal and they build a hotel because they think it's a viable business. We talked last week about the property over at the old Walmart, where the city council has approved rebating the builder $15 or $25 million out of future property taxes. That's not exactly a free market situation. That's paying a builder to build and letting them make extra money. It makes me wonder how many of these other properties, like around Home Depot, 3rd and Martin, and so forth, have they made the same deal with? Do they have deals with half a dozen builders to keep rebating property taxes for the next 25 years? And then that makes me wonder further. Last year, our budget went up by $50 million, which was a 13% increase. This year, it went up by $60 million, which is another 13% increase. So it's gone up 26, 27% compounded in 2 years. No one else is getting a 27% raise. So I'm wondering if a lot of these increases are being forced on us because our property tax revenue is going to refund these builders for building. And that's not what our city council should be doing. They should be managing the city, not controlling it and not owning such a large part of it.
Love it. Thank you, Steve. I look forward to the next call from you saying, hey, let's tackle something else. So I appreciate all of everyone coming on and viewing these, and let's do it again.
Sounds good. Have a great week.
Thank you. You too.